I stood at the doorway of my daughter's house, trying one last time to pull her back from disaster. Instead, she snapped at me, "Leave, or I'll call the police," her voice shaking with anger, her eyes cold as glass. I just gave a thin smile, turned away, and pulled out my phone to call the realtor. If they were so eager to lose that house, I'd make sure it happened. Before we continue, please subscribe to stay updated on our latest stories. Brandon's face flushed red as he slammed the credit report onto the break room table. His coffee splashed across the scattered papers, bank statements I had pulled from my jacket, printouts that told the story he never wanted me to read. "Where the hell did you get these?" His voice cracked like a kid caught stealing. I kept mine steady, the way I'd learned when contractors panicked over a settling foundation. "The bank called my house by mistake. Late payment notice for Emily's address." I tapped the statement with one finger. 52,000, Brandon. Gambling debts, all tied to my daughter's house. He stepped in close, so close I could smell the mix of cologne and nervous sweat. The buzzing fluorescent lights above us felt like a hive. "This doesn't concern you, old man." "Doesn't concern me?" I spread the papers across the scarred tabletop. "My daughter's about to lose her home because you can't stay off poker sites, and you think that doesn't concern me?" His flashy watch caught the light as he swept the papers onto the floor. They drifted down like dead leaves. "Stay out of my business, Robert. I handle my own affairs." "Your affairs?" I bent down, picking the pages up with the same careful hands I'd once used to sort blueprints. "These debts are tied to Emily's house, the home she thinks is safe, the one you've been mortgaging without her knowing." "She knows." His voice wavered. "Does she?" I stood tall, staring him down. "Does she know about the second mortgage, the equity line, the loan against her retirement?" Brandon turned toward the vending machine, humming in the corner, shoulders tightening under his pressed shirt. "I'm handling it." "By borrowing more?" I pulled out my phone, showed him the screenshot of his latest credit application. "Another 30,000. Same house." He lunged, trying to snatch it, but I pulled back. For a split second, I saw it on his face. Not just anger. Fear. "You don't understand," he muttered, the fight draining from his voice. "I had a system. It was working. Your system is about to cost my daughter her home. Your daughter?" He laughed, hollow. "She's my wife, Robert, 3 years now. Time you figured that out." I slid my phone back into my pocket. The break room felt smaller, walls pressing in, a half-eaten sandwich curled at the edges on the counter. "I built the equity in that house," I said quietly. 30 years of overtime. 30 years of choosing mortgage payments over vacations, over clothes, over everything. And you're gambling it away. I didn't ask for your help then, and I don't need it now." His knuckles whitened on his coffee mug. "Stay out of my business, or what?" He slammed the mug down, cracking it. Coffee spread across the table, creeping toward the papers I just recovered. "Just stay out." I folded the damp sheets, tucked them back into my jacket. Brandon stood there breathing hard like he'd run a mile. The vending machine clicked off, leaving a heavy silence. "I'm trying to help," I said. "I don't want your help." I nodded, turned for the door. Behind me, he called something about knowing my place, about minding my own business. I was already thinking ahead. Emily would listen. She had to. My watch read 3:30 as my footsteps echoed down the hall. She'd be home soon. Brandon wouldn't be back until after 6. That gave me time. The engine ticked as it cooled in her driveway. Through the window, I saw the glow of the oversized television Brandon had splurged on last month, the one that probably cost more than most people's mortgage payment. I sat a moment, planning it out like I used to plan construction schedules. Step 1, show her the documents. Step 2, explain the danger. Step 3, find a solution. Before I could knock, Emily opened the door, phone to her ear. "Mom, I'll call you back. Dad's here." She hung up, gave me that careful smile she'd been wearing since the wedding. "This is unexpected." "We need to talk," I said. Her smile faltered. She stepped aside, motioned toward the living room. Brandon's gaming gear sprawled across one corner on controllers and empty cans littering the coffee table. The air smelled like expensive candles and tension, the kind that seeps into walls when money fights never end. "Coffee?" she asked, already moving toward the Kit Johnson. "This is serious, Emily," I said. She stopped in the Kit Johnson doorway, one hand braced on the frame. "Fine, but I'm making coffee anyway. My hands need something to do when you start talking like this." I followed her in. A stack of unopened bills was tucked behind the toaster, and she avoided even glancing at them as she fussed with the machine. The refrigerator was plastered with wedding photos, Brandon's arm draped around her shoulders in every shot like he owned the place. I know about the gambling debts, I said. The scoop slipped from her hand and hit the counter. What gambling debts? I spread the documents across the island. Bank statements, credit reports, loan applications. Through every one of them carried Brandon's signature, everyone tied to her address. 52,000, maybe more. He's been using your house as collateral. Her face drained, then flushed red. That's impossible. It's right here. I tapped the equity line. Second mortgage for 30, credit line for 15, and no. She swept the papers off the island, scattering them across the floor. Brandon would never do that. He would never risk our house. Emily, look at them. They're fake. She gripped the counter, back to me. You made these up. Why would I? I crouched, picking up the papers again. Because you don't like Brandon. You never have. Her voice sharpened the way it always did when she felt cornered. You want to break us up. I want to save your house. Our house is fine. She spun, eyes wet. We've never been late on a payment. Because you don't know about the other ones. I held up the statements. 2,200 last month, 1,400 the month before. Where do you think that money comes from? Stop it. She pressed her hands over her ears. He's borrowed against everything you own, your car, your retirement, your house. Stop it. She lunged for her phone. Brandon loves me. He would never hurt me. You're lying. My knees ached as I stood. The Kit Johnson felt fragile, like the whole room might collapse if we raised our voices any louder. I'm not lying, sweetheart. Don't call me that. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through her contacts. Don't you dare call me that. Emily, get out. The words came strangled, desperate. Get out of my house right now. Your house? I looked around. Brandon's flashy purchases, the bills she ignored, wedding photos where I barely appeared. The house I co-signed for? The house I helped you buy? Get out, she raised the phone like a weapon, or I'll call the police and tell them you're harassing us. Something cold moved into me. Not pain. I'd passed that point between the coffee maker and her covering her ears. This was sharper, steadier. I smiled. She blinked, thrown off. She'd expected begging or anger. Instead, I calmly folded the papers, tucked them into my jacket. You'll call the police? I asked quietly. Yes. But doubt flickered in her eyes. On your father, who's trying to keep you from losing this house? You're not saving anything. You're trying to ruin my marriage. I stepped toward the door, paused in the entrance. Behind me, she clutched the phone like a lifeline. I hope Brandon's worth it, I said. He is. I hope the house is too. I walked out, slow and steady, and climbed into my car. Through the window, I saw her still on the phone, probably warning Brandon about her crazy dad and his fake paperwork. The engine started on the first try, reliable like most things I'd built in my life. As I backed down the driveway, I saw her framed in the big window, small against the curtains, surrounded by Brandon's toys. That was my little girl once, the one who used to sit with me balancing the checkbook, who trusted me completely. I drove home slow, already planning my next move. This time, I'd speak with someone who understood documentation, someone who knew the weight of a cosigner's signature. The house was too quiet when I walked in. I set my keys in the wooden bowl by the door, the one she'd made back in 7th grade shop class. The rooms felt bigger than usual, emptier too. The coffee maker sputtered to life with its usual precision, one of the few reliable sounds left. While it brewed, I stood at the sink, staring out at my garden. February in Florida meant the citrus trees were heavy with fruit I'd likely eat alone. Everything I'd built in this house felt hollow now, like finishing a building only to find the tenants gone. My coffee was black, the way I learned to drink it back when cream was a luxury we couldn't afford. I carried the mug to the recliner that once belonged to my father and let the past roll in. 1994, Emily was 7, gap-toothed, always asking why Daddy worked so many nights. Back then, I was pulling 18-hour days, 12 at the engineering firm, then 6 more at the concrete plant until my back screamed and my hands split from lime burns. She once sat on my lap as I filled out the payment stub, tracing the numbers. Why do you always pay extra, Daddy? Because the bank charges interest. If we put $50 more toward the principal, we'll own the house faster. She nodded like she understood compound interest at 7, so it'll really be ours. That memory tasted bitter now, mixed with cold coffee and 30 years of irony. I'd cut vacations, counted every dollar, sacrificed everything to teach her the value of ownership. One year, the water heater died and the Disney trip became plumbing repairs. It's our house. I told her then, when you own something, you take care of it. She'd forgotten those lessons somewhere between wedding fittings and Brandon's promises. Forgotten the nights I ate peanut butter sandwiches so she could take fresh fruit to school. Forgotten the overtime that paid for her college, her car, her wedding. Brandon never worked overtime a day in his life, never balanced a checkbook. To him, money was always there, consequences for someone else, and Emily chose that world over mine. I set my mug down beside her graduation photo. She'd been so proud that day, debt-free, because her father had planned since she was 7. I did it all for her, I said into the quiet. But that wasn't true anymore. She made her choice in that Kit Johnson when she called me a liar and threatened to dial the police. Now it was my turn to choose. Walk away and let Brandon's gambling destroy everything I'd worked for, or fight back. Not as a father trying to rescue an ungrateful daughter, not as a hopeful grandfather, but as a man being cheated out of 30 years of equity. The house creaked around me, solid proof that careful planning lasts. Brandon's philosophy was the opposite: borrow tomorrow to buy today. Time to see which held up. I stretched sore muscles, my mind clicking into engineer mode. Identify the problem, assess resources, build a solution. They thought possession gave them power. They forgot about the documents I signed decades ago. In my office, the filing cabinet waited, alphabetized, dated, cross-referenced. Emily's house had its own thick folder from the first mortgage to last month's taxes. I spread the papers across my desk under the bright LED lamp. Loan applications, credit reports, bank statements, and finally, the page I wanted. The original mortgage, with 2 signatures at the bottom, hers in careful script, mine in neat engineer's print. What made me smile wasn't the signatures at the bottom, but the line above them. Co-applicant Robert Hayes. Father, joint and several liability. I leaned back in the leather chair I'd bought when I made supervisor 20 years ago. That phrase, joint and several liability, had real teeth. Teeth Brandon Klee never thought about. The memory came back, clear as day. April 2021. Emily and Brandon sitting across from loan officer Laura Johnson at Heritage Federal Bank. Brandon's record was shaky. 2 jobs in 3 years. Credit score around 620. Emily's paycheck as a dental hygienist was steady but modest. Together they could swing maybe $200,000. But the house she wanted was $340. We'll need a cosigner, Laura said, tapping her calculator. Someone with excellent credit and steady income. Brandon shifted. What does that mean exactly? It means the cosigner is legally responsible if you default. Equal rights, equal responsibility. I had hesitated. 40 years of steady work, credit over 800, savings I'd sweated for. Did I really want to put all of that at risk for Brandon? Then Emily gave me that look she'd had since she was a little girl. Please, Dad, we'll never miss a payment. Laura pressed on. You understand, Mr. Hayes, that as co-applicant, you'll have standing in major decisions, refinancing equity loans, even selling. Brandon had nodded fast, eager to get on with house shopping. Emily squeezed my hand, and I signed, thinking I was helping her reach the American dream. Now, 4 years later, Brandon's gambling debts had turned those fine print details into my strongest weapon. I studied the mortgage again, magnifying glass in hand. The legal jargon was thick, but I'd spent a lifetime reading contracts. One clause lit up like a warning beacon. In the event of financial distress or default, all co-applicants retain equal legal standing to initiate protective measures, including foreclosure, forced sale, or transfer of title. Forced sale. I set the paper down, saw my reflection in the dark window. Emily could threaten me with the police, but she couldn't erase the fact that I was a legal co-owner. My name was in the foundation of that house. I pulled out my phone, found the contact I'd saved years ago, Thomas Johnson, Laura's brother, a real estate lawyer who specialized in family property disputes. Tomorrow I'd call him. Not as a father begging for his daughter's safety, not as a grandfather dreaming of future kids, as a co-owner protecting his investment. Brandon thought he was clever. Emily thought I was just dad, easy to ignore. They'd both forgotten the first rule of construction: always check the foundation before you build, and this one had my name written all over it. I slid the papers back into the folder, returned it to its slot in the cabinet. Phase 1 had been discovery. Phase 2, reconciliation. Both failed. Phase 3 would be law and contracts, not feelings. For the first time since uncovering Brandon's debts, I felt like I could win. I'd spent my life building foundations. I also knew how to tear down a structure when the supports were rotten. I'd barely settled into my evening routine when pounding rattled the front door. 3 sharp knocks, a pause, then 3 more. Through the peephole, I saw Brandon, flushed and wild-eyed, his expensive shirt wrinkled like he'd been clawing at it. I opened the door just a crack. The chain still latched. "Evening, Brandon." "Open this door," he barked, voice edged with desperation. "It's open enough for a conversation." He pressed his palm against the frame, leaning close to the gap. "Brandon," I said through the crack in the door, "Emily told me about your story, my fake documents and conspiracy theories. Did she also tell you about the $52,000 in gambling debts?" His face flushed red. "Those aren't gambling debts. They're business investments. Crypto, non-fungible tokens, real estate." "Strange," I said. "Poker sites don't usually deal in real estate." He shifted back and forth like a trapped animal. "You don't know what you're talking about, old man." I pulled out my phone. His eyes locked on it. "Should I call Emily? Let her hear your business pitch?" "Don't you dare." He jabbed a shaking finger at me. "You've done enough damage to my marriage." "I haven't done a thing. Your gambling's doing the damage." He slammed his palm against the door. "It's not gambling. I had a system. I was making money until—" He cut himself off. I pressed. "Until nothing. Just stay out of our lives. No more visits. No more fake paperwork. No more poison in Emily's ear." "Or what?" His smile was flat. "Or things get unpleasant. Lonely old men. Accidents happen." Sweat rolled down his face despite the February chill. His hand tapped nervously against his thigh, the same rhythm I'd seen in contractors who knew they'd lost the job. "Are you threatening me, Brandon?" "I'm explaining reality." He leaned in, reeking of alcohol under his cologne. "Emily and I are happy. We're handling our finances. You're not needed, not wanted, not welcome." "Interesting perspective," I said. "It's the only one that matters." He straightened his wrinkled shirt, stepped back. "Stay away from us, Robert. I mean it." I watched him storm off to a Mercedes-Benz upstairs. I knew he couldn't afford. The engine purred, German precision, all bought on credit. He tore down the street, tires squealing. I slid the chain loose, locked the deadbolt, and watched his taillights vanish. His visit hadn't scared me. It had confirmed the next step. Brandon was spiraling. The addiction he denied was eating away his money and his judgment. Threatening me in my own home, talking about accidents. That wasn't control. That was desperation. I picked up my phone and found the number I'd saved. Thomas Johnson, real estate attorney. Tomorrow I'd turn discovery into action. Brandon thought intimidation would silence me. He forgot I'd spent 40 years handling contractors who promised the impossible and threatened lawsuits when they failed. The difference this time, I had the legal leverage, and I knew how to use it. Thomas's office was on the top floor of a glass tower, charts covering the walls, the city skyline stretching beyond. He greeted me with a firm handshake, the same one that had earned my trust 3 years ago when he explained property taxes to Emily. "Robert, good to see you. I assume this isn't social." "I need a market analysis," I said, taking a seat. I set Emily's property folder on his desk. "This address. Current value." He opened his laptop. "Your daughter's house, right? The one we assessed back then?" "That's the one." He paused, fingers over the keys. "Everything okay at home?" "Let's focus on the numbers." He nodded and typed. Charts, comps, recent sales filled the screen. After 20 minutes, he leaned back. "Right now, 460, maybe 470 with the right buyer. That neighborhood's jumped since 2021. I jotted figures into my pocket notebook. "The house was bought for 340, I said. "Plenty of equity built up. Mortgage balance now should be what, 280? Thomas glanced at me. 293, I corrected, plus another 52. Brandon pulled out with loans. His expression stayed professional, but his eyes gave him away. Additional borrowing, home equity line, multiple credit lines, all tied to the property. He shut his laptop, leaned forward. Robert, are we talking about a forced sale? We're talking about a partition action. I co-signed the original mortgage. That changed everything. He reopened his laptop, pulling different records. Partition cases usually mean court-ordered sales. Timeline can vary, but buyers treat it like a motivated seller. Meaning, I asked, meaning you won't get top dollar, more like 420, maybe 430. Still good equity, just not peak. I did the math. 420. Subtract 293 on the mortgage. Another 52 in Brandon's debts. Add legal fees, commissions. Leaves maybe 70,000 net. Split according to ownership share, Thomas added. I closed the folder. Which brings me to my next appointment. He slid me a business card, scribbled a number on the back. That's my direct line. I pocketed it, already thinking ahead. When you're ready to move forward, call me first, Thomas. We shook hands. Partition sales take careful handling. I left his office with a clear picture of the financials. Now I needed the legal side. James Carter's office felt heavier, dark wood, shelves of law books that looked used. James was younger than I expected, mid-40s, precise in his movements, the kind of precision you only get from time in a courtroom. Partition cases don't come up much in families, he said, scanning my documents. Usually business partners or inheritance fights. Family makes it messier. People don't argue spreadsheets. They argue feelings. He spread my mortgage papers on the table. As co-applicant, you're more than a guarantor. You're a co-owner, which means Brandon and Emily can't refinance, borrow, or sell without you. These debts already cross that line. What are my options, I asked. Florida law allows partition by sale. It forces a court-ordered sale, splits proceeds according to ownership. He pointed to clauses in the loan. Timeline, 30 to 90 days, depending on court calendar and whether they contest. Once you file, they can't stop the process. I made notes, asked about costs. James was thorough. Filing fee $450 plus service costs. Understand, he said. Once you file, the relationship with your daughter will likely be beyond repair. I thought of Emily raising the phone like a weapon, of Brandon pounding on my door, of 30 years of payments turned into gambling chips. That relationship's already gone, I said. James nodded. We'll file Monday. Driving home, I sorted the next phase like a construction job. Foundation complete, legal prep finished, permits ready. Now came execution, where planning met messy reality. But unlike construction, this had a guaranteed outcome. They would learn cosigners aren't window dressing. Monday came gray and cold, Florida's version of winter. I put on my navy suit, the one from Emily's wedding, and the tie she'd once given me for Father's Day. If we were going to court, I'd dress for it. James met me in the courthouse parking lot, briefcase in hand. Ready? I've been ready since Friday. The courthouse loomed with limestone columns, a place built to remind people of permanence. Inside, metal detectors, security guards, the buzz of lives being sorted into legal categories, divorces, custody fights, criminal arraignments. We took the elevator to the third floor. The clerk's office was busy with printers, computers, clerks processing stacks of documents that would change lives. James spread our petition across a table. Partition by sale, listing me as co-owner, Brandon and Emily as defendants, full property details, current liens. I read every page. My name wasn't Dad anymore. It was plaintiff, co-owner. Legal language that stripped away family excuses. I wrote the check, $450 plus process fees. Cheap compared to watching Brandon burn through 30 years of equity. The clerk stamped the papers, case number CV 2025-192. Initial hearing, April 16th, 9 a.m., courtroom B. The sound of that stamp was final. No more family talks, no more threats, just legal machinery grinding forward. Defendants will be served within 5 business days, the clerk added. They have 30 days to respond. James gathered the certified copies. That's it. The machine is moving. We walked out past people fighting their own battles. In the elevator, James said they'll be served by Friday. Once they're served, they can't refinance or transfer anything, James explained. The list pendants freezes major moves until the case is resolved. Relief settled in me. Not joy, but the steady calm of a man who'd poured a foundation and knew it would hold. In the parking lot, we shook hands. I'll call you after they're served, James said. I drove home slowly, radio low, letting it sink in. For the first time in weeks, Brandon and Emily's choices couldn't touch me. The law would handle it now. At home, I filed the certified copies in Emily's folder right behind the original mortgage. Everything documented, ready. By Thursday afternoon, the storm hit. Emily's name flashed on my phone while I ate lunch. I let it ring. Minutes later, Brandon, then more. By evening, 7 missed calls, 3 voicemails. Emily's voice trembled. Dad, please, we got papers. I don't understand. Call me. Brandon's came later, angry. What game are you playing, old man? Family doesn't drag each other to court. Then Emily again, crying. Brandon says you're trying to steal our house. That can't be true. Please call me back. I deleted them all. Friday brought a flood of texts. No judge will side with you over family. Dad, I love you, but this is too far. Please don't make me choose. By evening, Brandon's tone turned darker. You're making a mistake bigger than you know. James called to confirm both had been served. I read him the texts. Standard, he said. Panic, denial, then anger. The real question is whether they respond. And if they don't, default judgment. We win automatically. Saturday, I ignored more calls and worked in my garden, pruning citrus trees, letting the physical work clear my head. Sunday's voicemail from Emily sounded rehearsed. Brandon talked to a lawyer. He says this is a bluff. We're ignoring it until you come to your senses. I played it twice, then called James. They're not filing, I said. Perfect, he replied. Let them think it's a scare tactic. Monday came quiet. No calls, no texts. At the courthouse, I checked records. No response from either of them. That evening, I called Thomas to set up the appraisal for court-ordered sale. They're not contesting, he asked. They think it's just family drama. He whistled. That mistake will cost them about $100,000 in equity. Tuesday brought one last voicemail from Brandon, softer now. Look, Robert, maybe things got heated. Why don't you come to dinner? We can work this out like family. I deleted it and poured fresh coffee. Outside the window, my citrus trees hung heavy with fruit, years of patient care producing something solid. Brandon and Emily had chosen to ignore the law. They believed deadlines and contracts were optional. They were about to learn otherwise. In 2 weeks, they'd learn just how wrong they were, but by then, it would be too late. I'd given them every chance to face the problem. They chose debts, threats, and denial instead of responsibility. Now the consequences were coming. James called Wednesday morning while I watered my citrus trees. His careful tone told me it wasn't good news. Can you come by this afternoon? At 2 o'clock, I found him behind a desk piled with case files. Partition disputes turn ugly when people realize they're about to lose their property, he said. Brandon's already made threats. That worries me. He laid out examples, police reports, restraining orders, intimidation. I'm not saying it's certain, but staying in your house may not be wise. The thought hadn't crossed my mind, but it made sense. Brandon's gambling had eaten his money, and now his judgment. Desperate men do desperate things. That evening, I toured apartments near downtown. I wanted furnished, secure, close to the courthouse. Cypress Point Apartments fit. Modest, coded entry, no questions asked. How long? The manager asked. 2 to 3 months, depending on court. She handed me keys to Unit 2B, parking space 47. By Thursday night, I had 3 suitcases and a box of legal files packed. The rest stayed behind, the photos on the mantle, the tools in the garage, 40 years of furniture. Friday morning, I loaded my truck, walked through each room one last time, shut off mail, checked every window, and locked the door. The house would wait, like a foundation waiting for new work. The apartment felt strange, generic furniture, no history, but safe. Anonymous. For the first time in weeks, my phone was silent. No threats, no pleading. Only James and Thomas knew where I was, and both were bound to keep it quiet. Brandon and Emily could shout at an empty house. I unpacked into the dresser, choosing safety over chaos. For decades, I'd solved everyone else's problems. Now I was solving mine, and it felt liberating. From the window, I could see the courthouse clock tower 6 blocks away. 1 week later, Thomas texted, appraiser finished, report filed, market confirms projections. 20 minutes later, my phone lit up, Emily, then Brandon. I let both go to voicemail and poured coffee. Emily's message was shaky. Dad, a man came to the house today, clipboard, camera, measuring everything. He said it was court-ordered for a partition sale. Dad, please call me, I'm scared. Brandon's voice followed, furious. What kind of sick game is this, Robert? You sent an appraiser to our house? The neighbors saw him asking questions. Call me back right now. You're embarrassing us. I deleted both voicemails without hesitation, opened my laptop, and logged into the court's filing system. The appraiser's report was already there. $437,000 valuation, loaded with photos and detailed notes. It was professional, thorough, and devastating for Brandon and Emily. My phone buzzed again. A text from Emily. Dad, please just talk to us. We can work this out. Then one from Brandon. This has gone far enough. Call me or I'm coming to your house. I smiled to myself. He'd find nothing but an empty driveway and a mailbox forwarding everything to my new address. The calls kept coming all evening. 7 from Emily, 4 from Brandon, each voicemail more desperate than the last. From Emily, Dad, I drove by your house. Your truck isn't there. Where are you? Why won't you talk to me? I know you're angry, but this is too much. From Brandon, you can't hide forever, old man. I found out the appraiser was hired by a law firm. This isn't over. By Friday morning, reality hit them. Brandon's voicemail sounded different, smaller, scared. I talked to a lawyer. He says you can actually force us to sell our house, that we should have responded to the court papers. Robert, please, can we meet somewhere? Can we figure this out? That afternoon, I sat in the courthouse law library reading case after case. Partition disputes all ended the same way. Documents, signatures, ownership percentages, feelings didn't matter. Property law ran on procedure, not family excuses. Saturday, they tried again, this time by email. From Emily, Dad, I was wrong to threaten the police. Maybe Brandon borrowed too much, but forcing us to sell will destroy us, our credit, our marriage, our future. Please don't do this. From Brandon, look, I admit I have a gambling problem. I'll get help, counseling, Gamblers Anonymous, whatever you want. Just stop the lawsuit. We'll pay you back over time. I forwarded both emails to James with one note. For the file. Sunday night, my phone rang 15 times. I turned off the ringer and went to bed early. Monday morning brought better news. Thomas called. 3 cash buyers already submitted offers. They want quick closings. Highest is $425,000. $10,000 below appraisal, but guaranteed 30-day closing. While I spoke with him, Brandon tried calling again. His voicemail this time carried Emily's sobs in the background. His voice sounded broken. Robert, I know you can hear me. We drove around looking for your truck. Ask the neighbors. No one knows where you are. It's like you vanished on purpose. A long pause, then. We're going to lose our house, aren't we? The lawyer says it's too late. 30 days. We have 30 days to find somewhere else to live. Another pause. I'm sorry. Emily's sorry too. We were wrong. The gambling, the threats, telling you to stay away. But please, don't make us homeless. We're family. I saved the voicemail and sent it to James. Evidence of acknowledgement. Family. They found that word again, now that consequences were closing in. But where was family when Emily threatened to call the cops on me? Where was family when Brandon stood at my door, reeking of liquor, hinting about accidents? Where was family when my daughter chose his debts over 30 years of my sacrifice? Now, staring at the reality of losing their home, they remembered. Too late. The process would keep moving. The house would sell. The proceeds would be divided. Justice would come, not through emotion, but through law. That night, I cooked a quiet dinner in my temporary apartment, looking at the courthouse clock tower through the window. I felt the steady satisfaction that comes when a plan works exactly as intended. Tuesday morning, the for sale sign went up. I didn't need to see it happen. It happened while I was at the bank, depositing a small consulting check from my old employer. Thomas called with photo confirmation. The for sale sign was up, complete with a multiple listing number and a rider marked motivated seller. We already have showings this afternoon, he said. 2 cash buyers, 1 investment group. The below market price is attracting heavy interest. I asked him to send me the photos. My laptop soon filled with images of Emily's house, technically theirs, but legally more complicated than they'd ever understood. The photography was professional, making every room look bigger and brighter. Brandon's gaming setup had been shoved into corners, Emily's decorations stripped down to generic staging. Their home was now a commodity, exactly what it had always been in the eyes of the law. By Wednesday, certified mail reached my apartment, official notice of the partition sale. It laid out timelines, buyer requirements, and closing procedures. They had 30 days to leave voluntarily or the sheriff would assist. I forwarded the packet to James. Everything's proceeding normally, he told me over the phone. No motions to contest, no delays filed. That either means they've accepted reality or they're planning something desperate. Can they stop the sale? I asked. No, the process is locked in. Thursday afternoon brought another update from Thomas. We've accepted the cash offer. 425 15-day closing, no contingencies. After fees, commissions, and the outstanding mortgage, your net will be about 78,000. 78,000. Not a fortune, but solid compensation for 3 decades of payments on a house I'd never lived in. Money earned the right way, through the law, not emotional blackmail. When do they need to be out? I asked. April 26th. Closing is the 28th. We need the house empty for the final walkthrough. I wrote the dates on my calendar, feeling something shift inside me. Not joy, just the calm you get when a complex project is finally on schedule. Friday brought a surprise. Mrs. Thompson, my old neighbor, called. Your daughter's sitting on your porch, she said. Been there an hour, crying, checking her phone. Left a note under your door. I drove over that evening. The note was in Emily's handwriting, shaky where it was usually neat. Dad, I know you're avoiding us, but we're out of time. We found an apartment but need first month, last month, deposit, moving costs. Brandon's trying for a loan but his credit is wrecked. Please talk to us. We'll be homeless in 3 weeks. Your granddaughter, Emily. She signed it, your granddaughter Emily, as though reminding me of our bond would erase court orders and legal documents. I filed the note with the rest of my case records and went back to my apartment. The weekend passed quietly. No more calls, no more texts. They'd run out of ways to reach me. Sunday evening, Thomas called. Closing is Thursday, April 29th, 10 a.m. Bank attorney, buyer's attorney, me. You don't have to come if you'd rather not. I'll be there. Good. Bring photo ID and social security card. We'll handle the rest. April 26th arrived gray and windy. From my apartment window, I saw moving trucks scattered across the streets below, people relocating, starting over. I wondered if Brandon and Emily had managed to secure their own truck, their own apartment, their temporary landing place. My phone stayed silent. No pleas, no apologies. By then, they must have realized our relationship had shifted from family to legal adversaries. And in court, emotion didn't count for anything. On Thursday morning, I put on my Navy suit, gathered my ID, and headed downtown. The courthouse felt like every construction site I'd ever worked. Orderly, deliberate, predictable. The closing was in a sterile conference room under fluorescent lights. Stacks of documents waited for signatures. Proceeds to plaintiff Robert Hayes, the bank attorney read aloud, $78,437. I signed where instructed, watched as 4 decades of effort and sacrifice were condensed into electronic transfers and stamped paperwork. By noon, my phone buzzed with confirmation. The deposit cleared. It was the largest sum I'd seen in years since before retirement. In the parking lot, Thomas shook my hand. A pleasure working with you, Robert. James was more direct. Justice had been served. Back at my apartment, I found a voicemail waiting. Emily's voice was soft, tired. Dad, we moved out yesterday. Brandon found a job in Tampa, so we're starting fresh there. I wanted to tell you, I understand now, about the money, about his gambling, about why you did what you did. I'm sorry it took losing our house for me to see it. I hope one day you can forgive us. I love you. I played it twice, then deleted it, realizing consequences wasn't the same as earning forgiveness. That weekend, I toured condominiums in a golf course community. The sales agent walked me through a corner unit with a garden view. Most of our owners are retired engineers, teachers, managers, she explained. People who saved and planned for retirement. People who understand security comes from steady work, not from gambling schemes. People who respect contracts instead of treating them as suggestions. It felt like the right fit. I made an offer. While Brandon and Emily started over in Tampa carrying the weight of ruined credit and expensive lessons, I was stepping into something new. They'd chosen denial and threats over responsibility, assuming family ties would protect them from consequences. They were wrong. Thursday afternoon, I walked through my new condo, sunlight pouring across the golf course outside. I wasn't running from family. I was moving forward as a man who had defended his rights against people who mistook kindness for weakness. Justice had been delivered. Lessons had been carved into stone, and I had a new life to build, resting on a foundation strong enough to hold anything I wanted to put on it. Construction could begin whenever I was ready. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. And as always, thank you for watching.